Good morning. Thank you for attending this webinar at ParkerWhite University. I'm Keith White. Everybody seems to have came in, so let's get started. First, just a couple housekeeping issues. Of course, thank you for attending this webinar today, and keep an eye out for the future ones. This webinar today is going to be 30 minutes long. Really try to provide as much information in that short of a time. At the end, we'll have questions and answers, but please, as we go through this, feel free to type in your questions. I have my staff, Eric, Dina, and Ryan here, so we will be compiling the questions and try to get to as many of them as possible, depending on time. My contact information, you'll see a couple times here, but please feel free to email me after the webinar, and for the next 2 or 3 days, feel free to call me. If you have questions that are very specific to what you're doing and I don't get a chance to cover them here in trying to provide a broader view of the medical device brand and product ecosystem, then please call me directly. But let's get started. Let's talk about the 5 key stages to launching or relaunching your medical device brand or product. This is me, Keith White. I'm the managing partner here at ParkerWhite Brand Interactive. 24 years in the business here at ParkerWhite with experience in healthcare and the medical device industries. And then, of course, in my spare time and in my charitable work, charitable giving, I'm on the National Board of Directors for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, which then also keeps my spare time inside hospitals, clinics, in and around oncology. But again, spending a lot of time talking with surgeons, doctors, and hospitals. Yeah, as we start to move through this, what I want to do is kind of give you 5 things that have really been changing in the medical device area that really is going to have to affect how your marketing, the selling, the positioning of your brand or product moves forward. Today, supply chain cost is 20 to 30% of a hospital's budget. So they're aggressively looking at how they can reduce these costs. I mean, they've built in now the value analysis committees. I don't know if any of you have had to deal with that yet, but it's a committee that creates the purchasing situation. It can be everyone included from the CEO down to middle management or any mixture there in between. There's accountable care organizations, group purchasing organizations, integrated delivery networks. So the old way of just getting to the surgeon, to the doctor, proving out your case, and maybe getting it into that hospital has changed quite a bit. These organizations, as they're looking at cost reduction, are looking for companies to provide access to the latest technology, help them provide better outcomes for patients, obviously lower the hospital's overall cost. Physician and surgeons and specialists, all the hospitals are buying, as you know. This market is getting smaller and smaller as to who we market to, who we sell, and of course how we get your product in. And as we all know, population health is here to stay. We have to be mindful of how these hospitals are getting paid and how it affects how they deliver patient care. So now as we move through the 5 steps, let's keep that in mind. Things have changed quite a bit in the last 10 years, really quite a bit in the last 3. So we'll keep those things in mind when you hear me refer back to some of those ACOs, VACs, you'll now kind of have an idea. So these are the 5 stages that ParkerWhite over the last 24 years has established as being the most crucial in executing the effective and successful brand or product launch. And we do each one of these very carefully, moving through them as each one is completed, so that at the end we actually have the final product that all of us can agree on in moving out to the market. So the first one is going to be discover. So we're going to be discovering who you are and where you want to go. A lot of research as we're going to go through those stages. The second one is defining your positioning to differentiate your brand. What's your vision? What's your voice? Developing the emotional connection to your brand, the visuals, what you're saying, how that's actually gotten out to the market. Diffusing. Now this is where we actually go and really talk about, number one, is your budget, your strategic plan. Has it been thought through? Has it been bought off on by everyone in the organization that we're going to be on that path? The budget behind it. Do we have that budget set aside for the different types of campaigns we're going to be doing, and then looking at that? And then lastly, and something we believe in intently here at ParkerWhite, track, analyze, optimize. Always look at what's going on in the market. Always see how they're responding to your messaging and your visuals and your voice, and be willing to look at it and make some modifications. So let's get started with discovery. Who are you and where do you want to go? So this is where these 4 audits come in. I mentioned earlier, research, research, research. So we're going to be looking at management audits. We'll kind of go through the questions that we'll lightly ask in some of these audits. You need to have a competitive audit, know what your competitors are doing, know what they look like, know what they're saying in the market. A brand audit. How does your brand stack up against those? If you've never been in the market, how are you going to set yourself apart? If you are in the market, even better how you're going to set yourself apart. Customer audit. Again, a little bit of a separation. If you're not in the market yet, work with an organization like ParkerWhite or someone else who can actually get out there and get your information, your brand in front of KOLs, key opinion leaders, people in the market who can really give you the inside view. It's so important. If you're already out in the market, either work internally or work with someone like us to really get out and get some good, solid feedback from people who are in the market, who have to make those kind of decisions, and how you look as far as that market mix goes. So here are going to be some of the questions that you look at. Again, we're going to be topical, trying to keep this to 30 minutes. But in the management audit, we're going to look at your core competencies. And again, through all of this audit, I need to step back. It's always confidential. Confidentiality is expressed over and over again when we're doing this type of research. If you're doing research, the information can be brought back. We can look at it in aggregate, but you never want to call out in any of these 4 specifically who that information come from. So we'll get a chance to talk to the management. As a company, what's your core competencies? As this product or the service you're going to be offering as your brand, what are your competencies? As a competitor, how do you stack up? And then, of course, what's missing at this point within your company that we would have to understand and look at going forward. And then, of course, we're going to do the vision side. That's where you are. That's what they see. But where do you want to go? Do you have a vision for 5 years, for 10 years? What are your goals? Are there milestones along the way? Are there key performance indicators that again, have been bought off on by the entire organization? How are you going to achieve those goals? What does that roadmap look like? And then, really important, what are your barriers to success? Let's look inside. Let's see if enough of the management team has gone out and really understood what the barriers to all of those other things that they just told us really are. Competitive audit, again, really get out there. The internet, of course, and proliferation of marketing and messaging, you can really get out there quite a bit now and find out what your competitors are doing, what they're saying across all the different channels, and there's a gap. You're really looking at this point, where they sit, what are the forces and barriers to your entry in this area? What are they doing well? And then, of course, what are their weaknesses? What are the opportunities we can capitalize on? Sometimes those are actually different. You think that a weakness could be an opportunity, but it actually could be something that you'd want to leave alone if it's going to be a weakness for you as well. So what are the opportunities we can capitalize on? What resources and capabilities does your company possess, again, to be able to do all of this? And again, this is where we kind of do brand mapping, things of this. And if you haven't had a chance to read Red Ocean, Blue Ocean, it's been out there for a long time, It's just a great book that talks about if you want to swim in blood-churned waters where all your competitors are, or if you really reach out, find that blue ocean, be a little different so you're out there selling in an environment that isn't just clouded with a lot of other competitors. The brand audit, we really just go out, and again, if you're just launching, it's easy. You're doing it internally or someone's helping you create all of this. But you still, in the same thing, if you have a lot of existing brand expression, you want to get that out. You want to print it out, put it across a table, look at it, and make sure everything's following the same line. You wouldn't believe, we work with brands that have been out there 20, 50 years. And when you start to spread that out, and you wouldn't even know it was the same company. They don't even stay on their own brand guidelines. So be willing to look at yourself like that. Analyze your brand architecture and the communication system. Really look from beginning to end. Look at it. review all of the communications, advertising, websites, et cetera, et cetera. And then where do you want to live in this market's ecosystem? I mean, if you now really understand all your competitors, visual, voice, mission, what they're doing, what they're selling, understand yours and really what you want to do and how you want to go forward. And last but not least, by any means, is your customer audit. How well are you known? Aided, unaided? If you walked up and said, hey, we'll use this one little graphic. Who do you know that sells stethoscopes? If someone came up and went, oh, well, that's your company, then that would be a one way of being known by your product. If someone just knows you because you're Baxter Healthcare, that's unaided, a big company in that group. So again, you really want to look at that. What's your current audience segments in these marketplaces? Know it. What are your key attributes that lead to customer acceptance and loyalty? This needs to come from your customers, prospective customers, key opinion leaders. This doesn't need to come from inside the ivory walls, everybody inside your organization, in marketing, in sales, talking to each other. A lot of this information has to come from the outside. And then, of course, as we spoke earlier, do you have brand equity among your key stakeholders? If you're just launching new, you probably won't. If you're now adding to a product or launching a new product, you should really look and be able to gauge how much of that brand equity you already have in the market. So we're going to move on to define, and this is define your positioning, really on how to set your brand apart from your competitors and in the minds of your customers. So effective positioning is based on research that analyzes buyers' attitudes as well as their reaction, brand imagery, actual brand experiences within their marketplace. One of the chief goals of brand positioning should be to identify a point of difference between your brand and the competition. And I know that sounds like a no-brainer, but you would be shocked at how many companies won't sit down and think this through, look at what everybody else is doing. It's actually a very hard exercise, but you have to do it. It's paramount for your success. So positioning in the healthcare, who are you? What business sector are you in? What group? Because we went through that. Do you serve HCAs? I mean, surgical groups, nursing groups. Or are you patient facing? Are you on the backside? Really understanding all of that and then helping with, again, some of the things that we talked about in moving forward. Are you a cost out? Can you help with outcomes? All of the different reasons that hospitals and the administrators are looking at their business and what makes them successful today, you have to be very mindful as you're looking at your positioning in this market. What do your competitors say? So what does proper positioning look like? Ideally, one sentence, succinct, get it to the point. Think of the old 10-second elevator pitch. If you can get it across in the amount of time that you get in an elevator and go to the next floor, the prospective audience, you're getting it right? So again, succinct represents your company's core idea, and it's a communication of what your brand offers in relation to the market. So again, not easy, takes a lot of work, a lot of edits, a lot of revisions, but again, very, very important moving forward. And then really understand your purpose. Are you revolutionizing the market? And again, step outside the ivory walls. This isn't, does your CEO or head of marketing think you're revolutionizing the market? As you do your research, are you evolution or are you a revolution in the market? Are you just providing cost savings? Are you something where you can look at partners, maybe be bundled, and as you go into these healthcare organizations, you actually have that ability. So it's getting cost out of their budget, putting you in at a negative zero net cost could be a very big place and where you do some of your positioning. So we're halfway through and we're developed. So develop an emotional connection to your brand. Even in this market, and I think a lot of you have started seeing this, the visuals and the voice are getting just as important in the medical device market as it is in the consumer market. We all want to feel good about the companies that we work with from the very top all the way down. And that's developing that emotional connection. So what is it that great brands do? Well, They're an industry leader in what they do. They carve out their niche, they defend it, and they're an industry leader in what they're doing. They resonate with their target market. You're just not out there on the corner being someone with a megaphone talking. It actually, people, as they talk through you, they see your marketing, they interact with your brand, they can see how that interacts in their market. Deliver quality, not hype. And of course, the last thing is provide great customer service. Again, this kind of goes back to the research that we were talking is, are there some barriers to your success? We've actually worked with quite a few companies in a rush to get out a new product or to rebrand a company they bought and then pushed out. Some of the things that they didn't look at was their ability to fulfill on the promise. And many, many times, as close network as these groups and these buying groups, ACOs are getting, they share information. So be really careful in this about stumping your foot, going out too quick, or making promises that you can't deliver on. And then, it's time to develop your brand story. Really communicating that value by telling the story about your brand, your product, your services. Focus on them. Focus on the client. What we're seeing a lot now, and I'm sure a lot of you have too, is in the hospitals, is they're looking at their brand. They're looking at how they fit in the community. It's great to finally see that a lot of them are putting the patient in the center, and everything that comes out from those organizations are about the patient. So it's the same thing that you really need to do in the medical device industry is put your purchaser, put your customer in the center of that circle, and then focus that messaging around what they need, their pain points, how they do the business they do. And that changes from the CEO, CIO, chief nursing, chief experience officer. So you really have to understand messaging within your organization and telling your brand story. And then differentiate through design and emotion. You're seeing a lot of companies that we help are going very patient focused, even in a very B2B environment. They're telling the story. They're showing the outcome, the happy patients, things of this nature. It used to be just all about beautiful pictures of knee implants and hip implants. It's now people playing tennis. So again, use design and emotion, messaging around your customer and their pain points. And then your brand visuals and your brand voice. Are you compelling in your visuals and your voice? Are you communicating ideas that bridge what people are interested in what your product or service or brand offers? Do things rather than just say them. Really get involved. Have them understand. Use case studies. Really let them see deeper in past the purchase to what would it be like to actually partner with your brand, your product, your service. And then do your customers feel embedded in the experiences of your brand? Is it just very cold medical? Or are you that next stage? They can really see and care when they're reading about you, interacting with your brand, everybody in your company. And then I spoke to this just a minute ago, and you're going to hear that with ParkerWhite quite a bit. Research, test, analyze, optimize. And that's test the messaging. Get outside the company. And by the way, this doesn't mean your wife or husband who doesn't work in the industry or grandma or whoever's like, hey, do you like this? It's test the messaging outside the company within the organizations you're going to be doing business with. Do your visuals tell the story? Does the story resonate? And it would only resonate with someone who is within that market. If you're a consumer-facing group, medical device, especially with now a lot of self-pay happening, that might change a little bit. But for the most part, get outside the company, but stay inside your market. And then the story's built. Everybody's excited about it. You're ready to go. Can you live the dream? And again, that comes back to what we were talking about earlier, customer service, things of this nature. And can you really live on that quality, not hype? Diffuse. So this now kind of gets into the other side of, we've gone through all the research, we've had a lot of fun, talking to a lot of people, getting all of that, having our meetings, regrouping, really starting to polish this ball. Then we get to actually put a face and something beautiful on. Well, Now it's time to let the baby grow up, to really get it out to your market. So how do we do this? How do we diffuse your medical device brand out to the market? So first, you really got to figure out, how you're going to get their attention. And part of that, the 3 steps is, number one, your strategic plan. Have you guys really gone through and looked at how this fits in the market, done all the different steps that we have, talked about it? Have you put the budget to it? Know your budget. If it's going to be a regional play, that's fine. National, international, but don't expect to have an amazing launch going national with a regional budget. So again, then you can plan your media mix and how you're going to diffuse this with that budget in mind. Again, being realistic, you can make the absolute biggest bang possible in knowing what you can afford as far as the reach goes. The healthcare market has changed. We talked about that in the way that they purchase, who they purchase. It's condensing. How do you have those different messages? Getting in front of surgeons or key decision makers, more difficult than ever. And now they're actually employed by the hospitals. And then understand who you're talking to and how they consume content. So this is a lot of stuff we'll talk about here in a second, but the way when you're looking at your value analysis committees of who's in there, the way a CEO, chief nursing officer, chief experience officer, chief information officer get content, gather content, process it in their minds is all different. So you really have to understand who you're talking to and how you talk to them and the content that you provide. So again, we're quickly going to kind of move through this, but this is very much what we believe. The brand strategy is always pushing and going in. Here's all the different pieces that we actually go in and look at. Always understanding lead generation analytics. We want to get you out there, want to get you sold, get you moved into the organizations that you want to do business with. But these are always the keys we're trying to balance through. And then craft compelling content. Not necessarily what you want to hear. Remember that. Get outside the walls, understand, create content that gets people excited and provides the information that's vital to them. Use bullet points, break up the text, make it easier to read. Create content today that can be easily shared. And I'm not just talking about the 4 little social icons at the bottom. Make people want to share your content. Give them the type of things that mean something to them so that they'll pass it along, and make people think. I know sometimes it's very generic, say make people think, but you have to give them content that puts you inside their organization. Your website, it has to be the hub today for all of your marketing with demand generation, content marketing, the way this medical market today consumes information. Your website has to be the hub. So build it engaging. It has to be responsive, or Google's going to slam you on search engine optimization. User friendly. The UX has to be on target. Test your landing pages, of course, with the different offers. Create that meaningful user journey. Understand how your different people are going to come in. Understand how they're going to move through your website. Look at those paths. Be willing to make some changes. Test, analyze, optimize. Always measure your results. Construct a content marketing engine. And demand generation today, with lesser time, used to, sales would get out, they'd try to get into the different offices, they'd try to get into the surgeons, hospitals. Time is being so compressed today. People want to know, organizations want to know more and more about you as an organization, what you've done, how your product fits into their ecosystem before they even call you. You have to have a content marketing system. Get your voice out there. Understand, and I'll probably beat this one to death. Who are your personas? They're changing with these accountable care, group purchasing, integrated delivery. Who are the personalities inside there? And back into how do they consume information? What are your content goals? What are you trying to do in getting that information out there to let them process it? How are you moving them through the pipeline? What's your primary content type? Does it fit the market? Does it fit the way they consume information? Does it work on the type of device where they consume information? And then what channels will you target? Again, as you can see, a lot of questions, but if you will go through this and get it right, whether you use an organization like ParkerWhite or you do this internally. Stay the course. Do these. It's a lot of research, a lot of brain, a lot of head scratching, but if you get it right and you're willing to optimize it, it's going to be perfect. It go through the roof for you. Use email. I know over the last couple of years, email is probably in most people's minds ran the course of direct mail, but it's because it's being done wrong. We have an amazing email program at ParkerWhite. We ask a lot of questions. We track, we optimize incredibly, but we use succinct messaging that gets the point across. We create subject line that gets people's attentions. Always designed with mobile, and then pinpoint the times. There's so much information out there today about when people read, what day they read, what they're willing to read. But you have to be a smarter marketer. You have to use the information that's available to you, look at it, and then of course, being willing to polish that ball. Digital advertising, you guys know that you have to connect today on many different channels. Social ads, videos, everyone knows YouTube now. I don't think there's a medical device company out there that doesn't have either videos on their existing site or have just really peppered YouTube with it, since it's the second largest search engine, even among B2B today. Remarket and retarget, love those. And use programmatic ad servers to reach your customers on multiple devices. And programmatic is now just more of an automated way of bidding, where your ads go, where the retargeting happens, how many messages you can use. So it really keeps a human from having to sit there and try to figure it out. It's server based, it's software that really does all that super quick thinking for you. Seeing it from an analog world, someone like me sitting in front of a computer, to using a computer to actually do it in so much faster real time. And we talked this to death. I've only got about 2 minutes left, so I'm going to breeze through it. Track, analyze, and optimize. None of us can afford to live in a world where we think we build it once, we talk about it, and we never look at how it resonates with the market and then change with the way even medical devices changed over the last 5 to 10 years. So dissect. There's so many analytics available out there. I mean, Google, of course, was the one if you want something free. But there are so many different, great, amazing tools out there that an organization like ParkerWhite, or you can actually get internally, that measure your traffic sources and look at the data, can create A/B testing, track conversions and bounce rate, what's going on. You send out 1,000 emails. If only 2 people open it, that's what happened, 2 people. You didn't touch 1,000 people, you touched 2 people. So you always have to look at that. Analyze your customer engagement and use tracking URLs to really be able to slice and dice your information. Email analytics, went back to this, told you again, if it's done right, I still absolutely believe in it as a tool. Decide what you're going to test the whole list or test a part. Metrics for results. Test early, test all the time. Just keep testing and perfecting and asking yourself the question. We just hit 30 minutes, got maybe 3 more slides, and hopefully you guys can hang on just a couple more minutes. Social analytics. We can't avoid this in the medical world anymore. The FDA, of course, kept us pushed back for a long time, but the world had its way. You have to understand what's going on with your brand in the social world. Use the tools that are out there. Look at the analytics. Use social listening. It's amazing what it's going to tell you. The people that are actually out there involved, even in medical device. Directly engage with your customers if you have that ability. Use tracking tools to understand how effective your messaging is or what might need to be changed. And then use paid search in these to kind of get you up in the categories. Again, young brand, new launch, fresh start. You're not going to be up there as quickly as you'd like, so you have to use other ways to get you on page 1. So that's the recap. We went through the 5 stages: discover, research, define, positioning, understand who you are and how you're going to be different. Develop, let's look at the creative, the voice, the vision. Can we live it? Can we look at it? Diffuse, what's my budget? What are we doing? Has everybody signed off on the strategic plan? Now let's get it out there. And then dissect, track, analyze, optimize. So we'll open it up for Q&A. Some of you can stay around. We'll start looking at some of these. One of the questions actually that's been asked quite a bit is, how many personas should I develop? It's a great question, and thank you. Personas are really getting to where you have to understand them per segment that you worked in. We just worked with a company who was after healthcare and nonprofit, and we had to understand the optimizing personas within that, which would be purchasers and influencers, and how we talk to those. So there's not really a number as much as who do you have to talk to get your product or service brand accepted into that organization. There's 3 decision makers or 5, you have to understand that. And then of course that can help you come up with that number. What channels do you recommend we start advertising in with a low budget? It's a great question. The channels are usually specific, not necessarily to your budget, but really to the market. And then when you best understand who you're going to be talking to, where they're at, how they want to digest their information, and what content they want to digest, then it's really looking at cost to value, right? So that's where we could sit down with you. There are a lot of different channels, but how can we reach the most people spending the least amount of money so that we can have budget to do other things? And I'll be honest, we do that whether it's a low budget or a high budget. We're always looking at value to cost in getting the word out there. Let's see. How can I make sure that I have an accurate user journey? A lot of research. There's some great tools out there now with heat mapping, iFollow, things of that nature. But again, a lot of great tools, but a lot of painstaking talking to your market, users within your market, key opinion leaders, and really even start understanding. There's a lot of studies out there, even within medical device, on how that user journey can actually be looked through and then determined on your site. And then, of course, a lot of testing. Probably the last one that we'll have time for today, what's social listening? So social listening is the ability, and there's tools out there to do it, that actually goes out using keywords and your brand and aggregates everything that's being said in that area. And then, of course, pulling out the higher used, the emotional connection. I mean, God, there's so much today that these tools can look at in emotional context, just in the way the words are, the paragraph, the social channels that it's found in. So again, social listening is that tool that you actually go out. Again, it's one of the great tools that you look at, that you go out there, you can really see what everything's being said about your competitors, about yourself. You can be looking at keywords. I mean, think about it just like a Google search, or how you get yourself up on search engine optimization, is find out what's being said, find out what words are being used when your brand or your competitors are in there. And then there's great ways to look at using that within your content. But we are now actually, I apologize, about 5 minutes over. I want to thank you all again. There's my contact information with my direct line there into my office. I want to thank you for your time today. Keep your ears out for more of the ParkerWhite University webinars, and hopefully we'll be seeing you and talking to quite a few of you shortly. Have a good day.